Well, good morning. I'm a little anxious because my bosses are here watching my presentation. My wife is here, my mother and 2 of my 3 kids are also here. And my son, Santiago, likes Peñarol and he's in high school, so it's important for him to be here so they won't be pulling his leg. He probably received lots of messages congratulating me for The Simpsons and for other things that we did correctly during this week as Peñarol fans. Well, part of my family will probably not understand what I'm going to talk about. Gustavo talked about the now, and we do not know what's now, what's next, and to divide these 2 segments is complicated, but I will talk about a world I know a little bit more, and that's a Genexus world, the blue world that we were showing, and I will talk about that. Over the last few years, all the members of Genexus, all those of us who work for Genexus, know this very well because the marketing team has shown us the vision. I was looking at the screen, I couldn't find it, sorry. Okay, don't worry, I can manage. So, our vision. In this world, we have this vision. To describe it is easier. Software that makes software. To automate whatever can be automated. And why do we go to work every single day? Because we have a mission. And this mission, in words, is to help people create better applications in the easiest possible way. And this is what moves us. And the what's next in the green world of the solutions or in the world of technology is very difficult to anticipate. But in our world, we can predict. And we know that we are now working on the Genexus Salto version. And that's our what's next in the Genexus world. That's the Salto version. In order to tell you how we work within this world, well, what we do is to get to the world of solutions, the green world, we need to start in our own world. And this is an abstract world, maybe knowledge-driven development, or I would call it knowledge-driven because we produce models and we infer from those models, that is knowledge. And from this world, we jump to the other world. Well, how do we manage that? Through generators. To simplify, even though we take several steps, I could say that we use a generator. And this is how we map the 2 worlds. So I will talk about the Salto version in terms of generators and in terms of these bits world and the Genexus knowledge world. What do we do to improve modeling? I'll talk about the how and not about what we obtained, as Gustavo said. I think this is very straightforward. We've seen many cases and we'll see what we can do with Genexus. The Salto version will continue working on the web, cloud and integration. You've seen that. And I will talk about how we move from one world to the other through generators. So what generators do we use in Salto? First of all, the web generator. Ignacio Roqueta said that the world is neither web nor other things. There are many decisions we need to make, and that is why we need to keep a balance of what we want to decide which generators to use. The web generator, in fact, is made up of several generators. One is Java, one is server-side, one is .NET. And even though these generators are not explicit in our presentations, we are working on them We work on them to find the best techniques, how to use the Java language to really take advantage of it. We use the Java generator for scalability, concurrence. So that generator that supports high levels of scalability and concurrence in 1 second, to have 30,000 requests in 1 second is high scalability. So we have a good performance. In 1 second we have high scalability. That's in the Java generator and in Evolution 3 and in Salto. So we continue working there. And as Nicolas showed, in the part of the frameworks and the JavaScript generator, we keep on working, looking at the frameworks and for the user interface to see what we need to use in the world, what is used in the world, so that we can incorporate it in the generator. So web is still alive and well. And then some generators will be born. The first is the Swift generator. Some of you know that Apple is suggesting, well, more than suggesting, saying that the language to work in their platform is the Swift language. It's more modern, and they are suggesting this, and we make no decisions about what's next. That's in the red world. That's for the red world to decide. We use a Swift generator, and this is what we know how to do. Marcos Crispino worked hard in this field, and the Apples in Genexus today had already generated that when they told us there is a version 2 for Swift. So the KBs are not ready, but we will follow this Swift generator. It's going to substitute Objective-C generator, but there are not many new things in terms of features for you. We are simply following what needs to be generated. In the world of Google, there's nothing new so far. The platform is Android for mobile applications and the language is Java, though internal things have changed. Matias Hernandez will talk about how we catch up with recent design suggestions. We are in 6.0 version of Android, and that is a permanent commitment. We look at the latest version, we look at the language, and we do generators that respond. Here we even change the bidding process as Google recommends. We continue with what needs to be done. In the Microsoft world, Salto will incorporate a generator for Windows 10. If there is an important change in Microsoft, it's that they had several working lines for different devices, for Xbox, Editbox. There are ways of programming the Xbox, but we're not going to do anything for the time being. In this, we have in Xbox and the telephones and the tablets that will use languages that are not separate, but that was incorporated into what is called the universal applications with Windows 10. Sebastián Gómez will talk about the current situation, but these generators will be ready on the beta line. We have some examples ongoing, and Windows does not have telephones yet. I don't know when they will be launched, but very shortly we'll have the first beta generators for the devices when they are released. And for all Windows 10 machines, we have a generator. Another generator, where you've probably seen applications, is the wearable generator. We are working in the third stage of a generator. The first stage is to identify whether the technology is relevant, as we try the glasses. Now we try the watches. We'll try Apple TV, Android TV. For the watches, we've made some progress. In the second stage, we implemented more specifically, doing it well, with all the programs in writing to understand the technology. Some friends, like Broker World, worked with us with the back end of Genexus, doing interfaces, exchanging opinions as to how to do things in the watch world. And we are now in the stage of abstraction where we put the necessary things in the model. The model is well done in Genexus, so we can model it, we can add things, but it will take a little bit longer than other products, but we will release a wearable generator that will be used in all business applications. So, in fact, Ignacio Roqueta talked about this yesterday. There's a lot of technology to be used, different devices, and the variables of the technology to be used. If I have to use something native because I have to integrate the watches or with television, I will choose one thing, because if I have to cover everything and I don't have to go to television, for example, maybe I can use web applications. What we create is not generators per se. We create generators to bring solutions. So we'll see that our generators generate solutions, and in turn they have many generators. Now, going back, it's hard to follow me as an interpreter, right? I'm sorry for this. I'll try to slow down, please. She's happy, it seems. She's alive, yeah, still alive. So this is a world of generators. I can transform generators that are in a folder today to do something real. The world of technology is not moved by us. We are working along innovation lines, but, well, in the case of Apple, we know about television, and we'll have to get this ready, a generator ready for the Apple TV. Now, what happens with the modeling world? The world, of course, the generators, this is run by Genexus. I was about to say Artech, but the company is now called Genexus. Well, in the world of generators, the Genexus community is constantly working on a daily basis. So, in this field, in modeling, we always have to control two forces that struggle against one another. On the one hand, we want to add power, but at the same time, we want things to be simple. So in each version, we must find a balance between these two forces. So there are things that we have to incorporate, things to add power, so that we may get to the green world of solutions. And we are constantly moving forward when we have to achieve things with power. At the same time, part of our commitment is to do things in a simple way. And that is focusing on being efficient. At the same time, we need to be more efficient than the rest. That's our commitment. We need to have more productivity than the rest of industry in order to make applications and in order to do more with less. And this is what we've always seeking. So I will explain these issues to you. There will be specific presentations about the things I will mention. First, power. In terms of power, we, as Nicolas says, is exercising our strengths, the things we are strong about. So we need to keep on practicing this environment and make it even more powerful than what it is. And that has to do with transactions. If you like, from the very beginning, about 20 years ago, at least it was hard for me to understand early on because I wanted to do a system first, starting with a diagram, a bottom-up diagram, including entities, diagrams that then were going through different stages. And then somebody comes and says, no, this is a reality, and you have to go and start with the user views, and this leads to transactions, and then you add global data, and this is what a view of the reality, and you go from top down, and then you have a specific implementation. And in the Genexus community, it's clear to us that in the invoice, the name of the customer appears in the invoice, and the name of the customer is there in reality. So if I start from the other side, the name of the customer is not there. So that is the power of Genexus. This is the core. This is one of the most important things, the views. So Nicolas yesterday was talking about the graph, produced by Facebook, and it's precisely that. You look at the scenarios and you model from the scenarios. You model a data provider, you model the view for a specific scenario. That's our power. And here I'm going to anticipate something. What happens if you have a data provider and a transaction together? The result is a dynamic transaction. Graciela Liston will talk about dynamic transactions to go more into depth of scenarios. And the power we have on the transactions, the for each, the interfaces will allow us to access different sources of data. But at the same time, in the Genexus model, the model that goes to a relationship source will allow us to access. This is what we do when we do a for each. We can go to a group of tables or a group of views, SQL. So far we didn't have this. Or we could be accessing services or accessing functions of SQL. So that is our power. We don't create it because, we thought we want to use the views of SQL or use the functions of SQL. In fact, what we wanted to do was to identify a set of scenarios that were not solved before with Genexus in an easy manner, and we can use the dynamic transactions as a way of solving these problems. For example, unions, links, temporal data, that sort of thing. That is something Graciela will talk about in her presentation after the break. Now, this is regarding power. That power, in turn, comes together with simplicity of access. In the future, we'll be working on any access that will be done basically with a for each, regardless of the data source. Now, what happens with what Nicolas mentioned and Gustavo mentioned today? What happens with modeling of other things like smart devices or Word or both? Well, in that case, we are trying to simplify. In modeling of things, some things were complicated in smart devices, so we had a bright idea. We are doing the same thing as we are doing for the web. We bring things from the web. History has shown that they are useful. For example, the components. The only difference with web components of the web, sorry for being redundant, is that any smart device panel can become a component. I can use anything. I can reuse a component in the model, any panel, and use it in another panel. Valeria, in fact, did the event application, and she used that for the presentations, the same panel with 3 tabs. This is very easy, well known. There are other things we are inheriting from the web modeling. And on the other hand, we are working on UX patterns for mobile applications. Several of these things you can see in the Genexus event application. Here, Nicolas is moving his face. Well, my wife told me, this is dangerous. Don't use the head of your boss for a presentation or for an example, but I'm risking it. And you can move it downwards, upwards. What difference would it make if the face moves? Well, at that level of user experience, we have to get there, because we are competing in different markets. We want to create an experience that will mark a difference. It's a detail, I know, and there are many other things we need to take into account. But from a user experience, we have to be leaders with our applications, and these things are clear. And we are trying to find different patterns in different interfaces that the market has today, the ones that are more used. And you may wonder, what is this? Well, these are, for example, this in the middle is for Facebook. When you do upward scroll, if you scroll up, this part is hidden, because the interface interprets that I'm going to read, so why use a search that is using much of my screen? In this other one, this is never hidden. And those things are small details. But the difference is, compare this to handwriting. If I'm handwriting, I have to use the scroll, and as I scroll and I'm here, I have to change this and I have to change that, and I have to put a blue or highlight certain parts of the screen to do something that, well, all devices do the same. So we are trying to do something in a more declarative way. And now simplification is being taken to different places, for mobile applications, for notifications, for any mobile device like a watch. There are new interfaces. Matthias will talk about nearby interface to work with beacons and all that. In the web modeling, we brought new things from the web modeling to the SD, and the other way around as well. Things that we have in the web modeling that are close to specific things, we are moving also to the web modeling. Other more abstract things or clear things are also being incorporated into the web modeling to get better UX. And we are trying to apply more standards to ensure the quality of applications. Claudio Murialdo will talk about all these lines. We have controls for upload of images. This was very much requested, and we're doing many things in each of these lines to simplify each of them. So in fact, if it's web first or if it's mobile first, we are bringing things from SD to the web or from the web to SD. And what we see is that modeling these two platforms should not be separate. It doesn't make sense to keep it separate. You will see the same concepts used in both parts, and in a not very far away future they will come together again to simplify development of mobile applications even further. And by mobile applications, I mean web and smart devices. We need mobile applications regardless of the technology behind them. And the other end is the cloud. The cloud, for the cloud, we want the future to be PaaS, Platform as a Service, as you've seen in many presentations. We therefore have different services for deployment. If you go to coffee.com, you will meet other customers, and you'll learn that they did a lot of deployment, and they come to us to simplify deployment. We want to simplify deployment. Historically, our focus was development, development, development. And with the cloud world and the diversity we have now, we are now ready to simplify deployment. And in the PaaS world, we also want to simplify the use of services of PaaS. And Ignacio Roqueta, who works in many fields, worked in the field of using services of storage. And the idea is, for my images, for example, if I have 1 million images, I don't want to have them in the database. I want this to scale up, not because of the storage, but because of scalability itself. So I will be able to define in the transaction a client, and I put the picture of the client. But somewhere else, I want to say, I want my storage provided for images to be Bluemix. So now, when I'm preparing the invoice, I put a picture, and it doesn't go to the database, it goes to Bluemix. It's not complicated to upload the image, but there are several technical details and things that are not interesting, so I don't want to repeat them on a daily basis. And we simply go to Bluemix, we go to Amazon, etc. That's one thing that in many cases you will have to use for different reasons, and you can use images, videos. Why have them local? I don't know how much they will grow, so we can do this in the caching, distributing caching, and we want to do that in a more declarative way. So when we go to different platforms, if we in Bluemix we have a cache, we have this in Amazon, I have to press this or that. These are details, but I think these details will help reduce friction when we go to different clouds. I will take a few minutes more because I have to talk about productivity. A few minutes, 5 minutes only. How do we use that power and the things that we are incorporating in the model with more productivity? When we ask any of you, what is your greatest obstacle? That's user interface. When you do user interface, you have problems. You model, okay, but then you have problems. And you need a screen, you need a design. How do I put this here? That's a problem. So, engineers are clear about functions, but then it's very hard for us to do the interface. So last year, we introduced something new, which is called live editing. And Guillermo Pasquero and Federico Asato are fantastic in doing this, so go to their presentation. But I will tell you basically what this is about. If I have to touch what is on the left and on the right to modify something, how do I proceed? If I want to modify a font or a color or the position of something, I want to touch what is concrete. I don't want to touch the abstract. So if I have to do a mental mapping, so we want to reduce that mapping, and we wanted Genexus to do the mapping, because Genexus can do it in an automated way. So what we do is live editing. We have many addicts. Those who used it became addicts. You basically send something, send the data, the picture of the speakers, a tagline. You drop all the information, then you look at the design and you do a live design. It's running, the device is running, you touch here and you change directly. I don't know if you can read it, but it says here, class, the properties. I don't have to go to the topic. To edit a topic is painful today. So we want to eliminate that pain. We would eliminate the editor if we could. And over time, maybe we can do that. But for the time being, we simply incorporate live editing. So this is really very, very good. And from the point of view of efficiency that we are modeling, how productive are we with Genexus over time? And we've been doing this for 25 years. This could be a reality, but over time, this is the reality. On the one hand, we need to implement more things. World is asking me to incorporate and implement more things, write the APIs, do the watch, but at the same time, the knowledge base grows. So how are we going to face this problem? We already started in the now with evolution 3 when we defined modules, but let me tell you what happens when I need to generate more things here. Are we going to increase the generators or not? We have a strategy to have generators that you don't see, they are hidden. So we separate certain things from the model. The generator will not generate everything along a line. We can specialize different generators to generate different things. For example, we have an API generator. The API is being generated today. But how to consume that API? Who knows the documents or the description? How can I browse sending data to the API? So we are creating an API generator. Claudia will talk about it. Doesn't matter, we did a separate generator that does API. Not necessarily in a pipeline, it can be done in parallel. We are also, why SDTs take so long? Because we are now using new technologies to generate SDTs. In Salto, the times, Seba Gomez was telling me, well, 8 and 10 is the result. 8 and 10 times faster to generate the SDT. So we are experimenting. We want to accelerate time and productivity, and this is one of the pathways we follow. But basically, my knowledge base continues growing, and that is not only a problem. It is a complication when you need to develop software. So evolution 3, during evolution 3 we did modules that allow us to see that one basic thing in software development is that we should try to have low coupling. That is to say, I have a dialogue with you through a well-known interface, and I try not to have a long dialogue, and then we have high cohesion, and I have all I need at hand. This can be organized in evolution 3. I invite you to join us working in modules. There are many issues. In the upgrade 4, we have worked a lot so that modules which are so relevant to us in the community, through the modules we will be able to scale up. In 30 years work, many of you realize that we need to deal with scalability of modeling. And to sum up, we are going to separate into modules. So I can say I will work in this module, and this I will use the interface with this other module, so I don't have to generate them. I don't have to look at the code. I will work only with the interface. And when I run them, I will have to implement those modules somehow. And this is what will explain the scenarios. Ana Barta will talk about that. So all the scenarios have to do with efficiency, reuse, and collaboration. So, to sum up, in terms of modeling, we are always trying to find a balance with power and simplicity and to be productive. We will add power with transactions and data providers through dynamic transactions. We will simplify the development of mobile applications, whether they are smart devices, web or cloud, and we want to increase your productivity in the development of UX through live editing and modules. So, As I was telling you in the beginning, it's very clear. What's next is very clear in Genexus. You can go to better channel that Gustavo mentioned today with the Genexus Salto version to look at some of these innovations. This is not simply theory. We are already working on these things. These things are real. You can look at the modules. You can look at deployment. So this is in the short term. My presentation was about the short and medium term. What about the medium and long terms? I don't know about the other worlds, but I know very clearly that what we will be doing in future. We will be working on our mission to help people create better applications in the easiest possible way. Thank you.